Commissioners, the next item is item number 21, application for a certificate of appropriateness in the Borough of Manhattan, docket number 15-3989, block 1264, lot 5, 1230 Avenue of the Americas. Signed by Simon and Schuster building, originally U.S. Rubber Company building, renovation at Rockefeller Center, an individual landmark. An office tower designed by the Associated Architects and built in 1939 with an addition designed by Wallace, Harrison, and Abramowitz and built in 1954 and 55. All part of an Art Deco style office, commercial, and entertainment complex. This is an application to modify and replace storefront infill.
Good afternoon, I'm Catherine Red of the Commission on Conservation Department staff. This proposal involves two storefronts. They are the Rockefeller Center individual landmark. They're located here on the north side of 48th Street, West 48th Street, between Avenue of the Americas and Rockefeller Plaza. And they are within this portion of this building, the 1954-55 addition to the original U.S. Rubber building. Combined, they are now the Simon and Schuster building. And the storefronts in question are outlined here in red. They are adjacent to immediately east of the addition building setback entrance and adjacent to the loading dock, which abuts the garage in the Eastern Airlines building. We don't have that. Actually, it's on 002 there.
01, actually.
Oh, has it been changed?
No, this part's 01.
Yes, 002. Yes, that shows you the original building and the addition building, the Eastern Airlines building, 1939, as was the original building on Avenue of the Americas. Okay, here's some other photographs of the storefronts in question. And the tax first. David Sway's Parking Partners is here, along with Sarah Borough and Sarah Architects to describe the proposal to you. You have to open the hearing. It is.
Thank you, Catherine Castack, Keeping Space Parking Partners. Before I take you through the design proposal, Tom Olson, who is the Director of Operations for Christie's, I'm going to just say a few words to you about the project, and we'll continue with the design.
Thank you, Cass. Tom Olson from Christie's. We're delighted to be in Rockefeller Center. We took the lease, I think, in 1997, and moved in the year or two after that. It's a fabulous place of operation for us here in New York. It's an iconic landmark, obviously. The opportunity arose last year for us to acquire additional space just next door to our existing galleries. As you can see, we took that opportunity to expand our gallery operations. As you'll hear from Cass and the team, the project is essentially restorative in nature, fairly modest in scope. I wanted to come along myself to make myself available for any questions you might have, but respectfully ask you consideration. Thank you.
Thanks, Tom. So, as Catherine said, the project address is 1230 Avenue of the Americas. It's historically known as the U.S. Rubber Company building. It fronts onto Avenue of the Americas. The frontage is on 48th and 49th Street. In the 1960s, it was changed to the New Royal, the name change, and the Sanborn map indicates that. The area of work is here, these two storefront bays on the north side of West 48th Street, down at the back end of the building. And this side of the building, as you'll see in our photographs and elevations, really is sort of the back of this building. There are among 8 bays here along the sides of the building. There are 3 of those are loading docks. So we're talking about work at these 2 bays. This is what we believe to be an original glass and bronze storefront. There's no exterior work proposed for this. The work that's happening is on the inside face of the glass and just behind the glass. And then this bay, which has non-historic awning and an infill, that will be replaced with new glass and bronze infill, detailed to match this one. But again, there's proposal for film on the inside of the glass. This space that Christie's has taken over is really going to be back of house space, and there isn't a need. This isn't a store. There isn't a need or even a desire to see in. So that's what brings us here. Really, is the obscuring of that glass. As Catherine mentioned, this is 1230 Avenue of the Americas, the Simon and Schuster building. The original portion of the U.S. Rubber Company building was here. It was constructed in 39 at the corner of 48th and 6th Avenue. There was a theater, the Center Theater, which predated the building, constructed in 1932, that actually wrapped the building. And in the 1950s, with the theater failing, the building was demolished. And in order really to keep U.S. Rubber at Rockefeller Center, Rockefeller developed an extension to the building designed by Harrison and Abramowitz that included the demolition of the theater and basically wrapping the back of 1230. So it is in this portion, this sort of 1950s piece of the building that work is proposed. Christie's occupies this area with a hatch in the Eastern Airlines building, and we'll be expanding back to this smaller area to the south. Some existing condition photographs. Again, these are the two bays in question. You can see the condition of what's there. This is the loading bay, the loading dock that is directly to the east of the project site, and then some details of the infill. And then an overall view, basically looking up towards the avenue in this direction, showing one of the three loading docks and then the two bays in question. Just giving you a little bit of context around the building. So this is Christie's formal entry on 49th Street at the Eastern Airlines building. And then as you move down 49th to 6th Avenue, this is the corner of 49th and 6th, corner storefronts at the corner, and then at 6th Avenue and 48th Street as they wrap around. This is the sort of prominent piece of the building that fronts onto 6th. And then as you head down 48th Street, two of the three loading docks, and then eventually a new 1950s new building entry further down the street. This is the view just looking in the opposite direction across 48th Street, just to give you a context. This is the sort of back side of Rockefeller Center, or the south side of Rockefeller Center, with obviously sort of typical urban context directly across the street. We were able to locate historic drawings from the 1950s for the addition. And what this shows here, this is the 48th Street elevation. We have a detail of this area here. What this shows, at least in drawing form, was an extension of this horizontal line that basically divided the storefronts in half, running here at the corner. And they're drawn on this elevation, although we actually don't believe that they were built. And we think in large part, it's because the ground slopes up this way, and these doors, a portion of these doors get very compressed. The door height is drawn probably about 7 feet, so it doesn't create a particularly attractive proportion. Looking at the historic images, this is a photo from the 1930s showing the original U.S. Rubber Company building, the 20-story office tower. And you can just make out the Center Theater up on 49th Street. And the theater you can see sort of wrapped around the back of the building. Interestingly, these windows here seem to have been, this maybe during the time of construction, clear, to have been obscured with some sort of film or something directly behind the glass with little vitrines. This photo from the 1950s, we dated this at about circa 1958 based on the construction of the Time and Life building here in the background. If you look at this detail, this bay in particular, you can see actually that as constructed, the storefront didn't have that horizontal line. It's three single panels of glass, very similar to the way it is today. So we believe this is actually the original condition, although it was drawn this way, it was not built that way. And then directly next to it was an earlier version of the canopy and some kind of infill that's in shadows. Difficult to see. Photos from the 1980s around the time of the designation. Again, this is looking back towards 6th Avenue. These are the two bays. These are window treatments, but again, there's no mullion in that window, and this is looking in the opposite direction. So turning toward to the proposed work, this is the existing plan and the proposed plan, and again, this represents sort of a small area. Go back to the overall plan. This area here on 48th Street. And Christie's will be taking over the space, and if there's specific questions about the program, Sarah from Solar Project can speak about it. as could Tom. But the idea here is to have sort of back of house showrooms and gallery space back here. This space, which is directly next to the loading dock, is used as a photo studio. So there's a need to actually block out light in this area. And it's important to have this in proximity to the loading dock. So this is the existing proposed floor plan. And then the overall elevation on 58th Street, existing above and proposed here. So you see the existing storefront window, which would be preserved, the original storefront window. And then this bay where we're proposing new infill, basically replicating the detailing of this bay in bronze and glass with a granite base, and then introducing two swing doors, two double doors there. There is film on the back of the glass, really to obscure views in because of the back of house nature of what's going on behind it. But of course, it's fully reversible. It's just applied to the back of the glass. Again, the large existing and proposed elevation, giving you a sense there's a sort of two-tone film just to give a little bit of animation on the street with a more translucent film on the frame and something slightly more dense. We've got samples here. This is the more dense. You can still see that you can see through it, but it has some density. And then this is the border. The framing would all be done in bronze to match the framing elsewhere on the building. And then just a couple plans and sections. So again, this is the entry. There would be film on the glass. There's a light cove around it just to give some animation to the back of the glass so it doesn't sort of read as blank. And then here where the photo studio is, we're actually proposing a partition where we don't actually want light coming into the photo studio. So there's film on the back of this glass, and then again, just a simple light detail on the jambs and across the head, to give it a little bit of, yes?
What's the deal with the signage? Is that opaque or is that clear? We've got 5 signs now where
Right.
before it was just windows.
It's a opaque decal letter on the back of the glass.
And so the film is over top of that?
Right, so the decal is on the glass and then the film is over that. So all of this can just be peeled off. So the idea is that the infill is sort of restorative in nature, and then what's happening behind the glass is completely reversible. And then just finally, sort of a rendered elevation that just gives you a sense of how it might look with the new framing and the fill of the glass.
You're not going to make the black background, you're going to make the white or the color.
Right, so typically as is existing, when the storefronts are vacant in the center, they get back painted and they're just white. And I think there's a desire to have a little bit of light behind you with the light. And here, where there may be people passing by, there'll actually be there's some translucency, so you might see visibility there. And I think also just pointing out that this is really sort of the back of the building. I think this is obviously 6th Avenue is really the primary facade. This is a piece of the building here, the corner is really a reading. Back here near the loading dock, these 2 bays out of a building that has almost 700 feet of frontage. We're just talking about working these 2 bays.
Excellent. Is the horizontal intermediate mullion to the left of the building entrance at the same height as your transom to the right of the building entrance? Do you know? It looks like it.
It looks like it. So you're saying this is actually...
No, to the left.
This.
Right, that bar at the same height as your head.
We're slightly taller than that.
Yes, I guess.
Yeah. So the question is this horizontal at the same elevation as this? It actually aligns with the header of the building entry. This would have resulted in that sort of compressed squish, right? Or treatment, which we're trying to do now.
So there is testimony from Barbara Zay.
Barbara Zay of the Historic Districts Council. Overall, HDC finds this proposed storefront to be appropriate to the building. However, since work is being done to the storefront, we ask that it be restorative in nature and that the original division and the storefront bronze mullions be returned. This would enhance the appearance of this individual landmark and would further the elegant jazz age aesthetic that we can only imagine would appeal to Christie's clientele.
Thank you. Any other testimony? Bob can read the community board.
All right. Community Board recommends approval of this application.
I just want to clarify one thing quickly, is that there's really no evidence that there was a mullion here. It's on the drawings, but the earliest photographs from about a year or two after its construction didn't show that. So we feel we're actually preserving an original condition and working with it in this way.
John?
I can support this application, especially now that I learned that the backing on the glass is not going to be black, that it's going to be kind of a translucent white. That I can support. So otherwise, I think it's very carefully done, and the materials and the quality are up to Rockefeller Center. And actually, it goes along with what we did in the master plan about 12 years ago, or something like that. So I can support it.
Michael, don't you?
In general, I'm supportive of it. However, we have 6 pieces of glass here, and we have essentially five signs. And although it is all reversible, I don't think we would be allowing anyone else to put that signage up here, and I would call for some restraint.
Libby?
I concur with that. I mean, first of all, I have to say it's certainly very carefully designed and undoubtedly extremely expensive back-of-house area. But I can certainly support everything that you're proposing here, with the exception of all the signs. So in that group of 3, the trees, I think 1 in the center would be sufficient.
Sorry, okay, keep going.
Okay. Yeah, I'm fine with it. I also was hesitant about the backing, but I'm persuaded that you can see through it enough. Excuse me. And that it is white, so I'm fine with it. The signs are all right with me, but I think maybe not with everybody else.
I think that canopy shows that it proved the test of time. It's so good. I think it's fine. I think that reducing the amount of signage would be good. I think it's really, this is a passing thing, and another vacant trip that these guys will be renting somewhere else, and this is the storefront. It'll be, I think it'll come and go, and I think it's fine.
Signs, I'd say, can be with 3, either 1 or 2 signs, definitely not 3.
Actually, there are 5 actual sign placements, I think. I personally have signage didn't trouble me too much because I think it's extremely discreet, even though there is a lot of it. But I guess I would say put 1 on each side of the door, maybe whatever. If we're going to require reduction of the signage, which there's certainly no problem from my point of view doing that. And I think that the design in general is appropriate. It's very reversible. I don't have any problems with it. So that's, and I think the staff can deal with the signage reduction.
Yeah, I would send it, give it to the staff along the lines we've discussed here, somewhere in the range, in those ranges, and totally appropriate. And close the hearing now. A motion and a second. Joan, please, if you would. Thank you.
In the matter of 1230 Avenue of the Americas, also known as 5375 West 48th and 58 to 74 West 49th Street, Simon & Schuster Building, originally U.S. Rubber Company building and addition, Rockefeller Center, and individual landmark. An office tower designed by the Associated Architects and built in 1939, with an addition designed by Wallace, Harrison, and Max Abramowitz and built in 1954. All part of an Art Deco style office, commercial, and entertainment complex. Application is to modify and replace storefront infill. I recommend approval, finding that the removal of the sidewalk awning will eliminate a non-historic feature that obscures and draws attention away from the historic features of the building. that the removal of the storefront will eliminate infill that does not match the historic storefront as evidenced by documentation, excuse me, or the surrounding historic infill at the building in terms of design configuration and certain materials and dimensions, that the removal of the storefront framing is warranted by its condition, that the new storefront infill and framing will match the historic infill in terms of its tripartite configuration, glass, bronze, and granite materials, dimensions, profiles, and details as evidenced at the building and is shown in historic documentation. That the heights of the new storefront entry doors and transom bar align with those of the adjacent historic building entry to the west and therefore restore the historic configuration at this portion of the storefront. That the materials and design of the proposed entry doors will match those of historic and other replacement doors at the building and the landmark, and their recessed installation will be in keeping with that of the adjacent recessed building entry. That the proposed installation of opaque films at the storefront, that's kind of like white opaque, not black, and the display windows will be easily reversible and will not eliminate, obscure, or call attention away from the significant architectural character of the building or the landmark. That the installation of lettered signage at the interiors of display windows at both storefront bays, as well as its modest scale, will be in keeping with those features of signs found typically at display windows at the building and will not call attention away from the significant protected features of the building or the landmark. And that the overall effect of these changes will be to enhance or maintain the special architectural and historic character of the building with addition and the Rockefeller Center individual landmark. And the one thing that we agreed was that the signage would be reduced, probably one on each side of the entry door, but I'm not sure they could work that out with
Yeah.
staff.
Good. Second, all in favor? Aye. Opposed? Approved. Thank you.